Alright, so for our first game, we are up against Archmage, and we are not going to be very nice this game. So we open Trudea as a one-card starter, but we also open Chicken Game, so we might as well draw a free card to see what we get, and hey look, that's the entire Ancient Fairy Dragon line. So Regulus grabs us the World of Spirits, Spirits grabs us Spore, Spore summons itself out to summon the Ancient Fairy Dragon, and swap World of Spirits out for the Centurion field spell. So then the Ancient Fairy Dragon can summon Trudea, and we go through the entire Centurion line on top of having our Chaos Angel before we ever start to insulate our Synchros from Nibiru. So we kind of have everything and then some, and the opponent had no hand traps on this one. So we're going to end on a completely ridiculous board, and then Archmagia is a modern deck. It's not currently the best deck, but it is modern, so we have to be wary because it can play through some stuff, but it can't play through quite as much as we're going to be able to put on board here. So the Revolution Synchron from the graveyard was actually an accident. I forgot that Primera Primus was a tuner as well for a second and thought we could make a Shen Shen, so it's just going to sit there looking pretty. But, you know, that's a very minor mistake that's not going to end up mattering at all, because we can still go into Crimson Dragon with 2 Centurion big boss monsters on the field as well as Chaos Dragon. So we make Supernova because we're not terribly afraid of anything the opponent can try and do to us. We stop everything they do. They end up passing the turn after, you know, giving it a good honest attempt. They go through most of their hand trying, but nothing they can do matters to a 6,000 attack unaffected monster. So we clean that one up. So that one's mostly just to show you what the deck looks like on a high roll against no disruption. Cool, cool. Game 2, we are up against Sky Strikers. They made us go second because they are trying to break our board and simplify the game state. Thankfully, Centurion doesn't get broken quite so easily, and they Foolos us immediately, which doesn't matter that much because since we did not open the Ancient Fairy Dragon line, we can get away with literally 1 summon from the extra deck and put up a good number of disruptions. You can see that we already have Ash and Ghost Ogre in hand. They imperm our Auxila, which prevents us from setting something on end phase, but thankfully we had extension in the form of Emblem of Oath, which lets us set the Primera anyways. So we can do the full line thanks to that one extender. I don't know why they dropleted there. We go into the Blazar Dragon rather than Supernova because they are not trying to put a whole big board on the field. They are trying to just, you know, break us with spells and things. So that's going to be it. They end up giving up after going through most of their hand. I guess their hand was mostly interaction. It wasn't super killer for actually pushing through Engine. I don't know why they wasted the droplet when they did, because they could have at least saved it to force out the Blazar Dragon so that we couldn't stop the Hayate summon, because they didn't open Ray, so they had no recursion if the Hayate got destroyed, which is why we hit that with Blazar Dragon. But, you know, 2 disruptions on our turn, and then they try to break our board with a droplet, and we still manage to get through that, losing very few resources. Centurion's just really good at that. It plays quite low to the ground and gets a good number of disruptions in doing so. Game 3, we are up against Layer of Darkness, which is pretty cool because this is not a deck or style of play, I suppose more so than a deck, that I see terribly often anymore. Our hand does not look amazing, but it's actually pretty good because thankfully Foolos plus Revolution Synchron plus any way to get to any field spell is the full Ancient Fairy Dragon line, if you can believe it. Just because Foolos is a 4, that makes a 7 from hand, and off to the races we go. So it actually ends up being a very good hand. We just have to spend a lot of resources getting there so we don't end with as many cards in hand as we do if we open maybe a better starting situation. But we can still very much get there, which is dope. So we go to end phase, and we're sitting pretty on a big body and protection from monsters. Unfortunately, protection from monsters does not give us protection from Super Poly or Layer of Darkness, so they set up a bunch of traps on Layer of Darkness after Super Polying away our board. Kinda not great for us, but we still have extra stuff on field, and this hand we do not care about their virus that they just activated, because we don't have any spells or traps in hand. So we go into Primera Primus. They manage to stop everything we do that turn, but when we pass it to them, I don't know what their draw was, but apparently it did nothing, and when they pass back to us, we have Trudea as a one-card starter, and we can just go through the whole Centurion line. We can't get our Chaos Angel back, but in this simplified board state, we don't really need it, and they don't have a bunch of card advantage in their deck like we do. So they scoop preemptively, I would argue, but they can see the writing on the walls here. Cool, cool. And for our last game, we are up against True Draco. We actually got some variety this week instead of just a bunch of Blue Eyes and Nouvelle like it normally is. So our hand rips and has way too much extension. It doesn't go through the whole Fairy Dragon line, but it's a really good Centurion hand. So we start with the field spell. The opponent, since they're on True Draco, they are kind of a blind second sort of deck. They don't have hand traps. They're not going to hit us anywhere, so we can just kind of have fun and go. This is a neat little interaction that we can do here, where we get the Autry off of our extender, the Emblem of Oath, that we didn't necessarily need to go through, but it draws us an extra card in place of the Oath, which is cool. And then we can do just full Centurion stuff. We also leave an extra body in the Trudea for Centurion True Awakening. I like True Awakening. Because they're clearly doing something weird, because they're using duality, I go into Supernova assuming it's some kind of going second deck and that Blazar isn't as important as the Supernova. They negate Supernova's first activation, but we manage to get back and build more of a board. They got Masterpiece. Masterpiece is good, he just doesn't beat a 5,000 attack dragon with what, 6 cards in hand right now, so they can do stuff, but they can't get rid of our red Supernova. All of their disruption is destruction, and all of their things are 3,000 or smaller. So red Supernova just wins this matchup on its own, which is pretty funny, even though this is a scary deck that will routinely break boards and simplify a board state, and they do very, very well on a simplified board state. Our card advantage, plus just having just a real nasty boss monster, wins this one for us. Cool? Cool.